Welcome back to the Combat Sports Media YouTube channel. In this video, we're going to be talking about breaking down and giving out a prediction for the upcoming Jake Paul versus Nate Diaz boxing match. It will take place on August 5th in Dallas, Texas, and if I'm not mistaken, it will be in the American Airlines Arena, which is the same venue that hosted Ryan Garcia versus Luke Campbell. But I'm not sure about that. Don't quote me on that. Now, let's talk about Jake Paul first. Jake Paul, I love what he's doing. I always say that when I make a video on one of his upcoming fights. I like his dedication. I like his natural abilities. I like his approach and the respect he has towards the sport of boxing. I also like his choice of opponents because, yeah, maybe most of them aren't professional boxers per se, but let's be real. Jake Paul has like 6 professional boxing fights? And unless if your favorite fighter is Lomachenko, Jake Paul has fought better opposition in his first 6 fights than whoever the hell your favorite fighter is. Of course, unless if it's Lomachenko. But, we're talking about the first 6 fights. Just take a moment and examine the kind of opponents your favorite fighter fought within their first 6 fights. I will confidently say that Tyron Woodley is better than 99.9% of all the opponents that any pro boxer fought within their first 6 fights. Tommy Fury is a better opponent than 99.9% of the opponents that your favorite A-side fighters fight within their first 6 fights. These are just facts. And not to mention, he's in a relatively weak division, which is the cruiserweight division. This is a division where club bouncers, and it's not uncommon for a club bouncer that boxes on the side to find or have some success within the division. It's just not talent filled. It's not exactly the welterweight division per se when it comes to talent. And also on top of that, there's less registered boxers in the cruiserweight division than most other divisions. So there's a quicker pathway to a regional or even a world title shot, especially with someone with the name power of a Jake Paul. A lot of people assume that Jake Paul getting a title shot in boxing is a far-fetched thing, but it's very realistic, and it's all about how much he wants it. Because if he continues to fight, he will eventually get a title shot. And he almost got a world ranking in his last fight, and it was only his 6th fight. He just didn't because he lost. I mean, he's still ranked, but he would have been ranked in the top 50 or 40 in the WBC. So let's get to some technical aspects regarding Jake Paul. He doesn't have the most advanced skills, but he does have a real right hand. It has real power. That power is real. He's explosive and he's strong, and he's naturally a smart guy, or at least he seems like one. So for the amount of experience that he has in boxing, his IQ seems to be pretty good, actually. And again, his dedication and training is on point. He respects the sport more than a lot of other real professional fighters. You'll never see him come into the ring out of shape like you do some of our professionals. He's working with a new trainer this time around in Shane Mosley, who is one of the best fighters in my lifetime, if not ever. I know newer fans probably look at Shane Mosley as the guy that kept losing to big names later on in his career, but Shane Mosley is one of the best fighters of the past 40 years. So yeah, I mean, Jake Paul, he needs to, and he also seems to, from what we've seen thus far, he seems to be able to take a punch okay. He hasn't been hurt or wobbled from what I've seen. Even though I admit I haven't seen every single Jake Paul fight. But yeah. And before I go any further, I do think he did lose. He deserved to lose against Anderson Silva. I don't believe he won that fight. However, that was still a great step in the right direction for him as far as development is concerned. Because unlike a lot of fans, I think that it should be a normal thing for a fighter to have a loss or 2 or 3 or 4 on their way up to a title shot. You know, back in the day, like way back, like in the 30s and 40s, it wasn't uncommon for a fighter to have a few losses on their way up, working their way up towards the rankings to a title shot. So by the time they got to the title shot, yeah, they had a few losses, but those losses helped them develop into the fighter they eventually became. And we as people, that's a very easy concept for all of us to understand and get. But for some reason, when it comes to boxing, we throw that out the window. Losses are crucial to development, not just in other areas in life, but boxing as well. Boxing is no different. Boxing is actually a mirror of life. That's why I think it's the best sport. That's why I love it. It's a direct reflection of life itself. So in order for a person to develop and grow, he has to make mistakes, he has to fail, and he has to take losses in life. Same thing in boxing. This day and age, we have a bunch of guys being groomed to get or have fabricated records, basically by fighting 20 fake fights, and then after those 20 fake fights, they get put into a title shot, and it's basically sink or swim. It's up to the individual whether they are developed enough to be successful in that title shot nowadays, because the promoter and the manager aren't going to do it for you. They're not going to put you in a guy that you might lose against before you get that title shot, because they want you to get to that title shot so they can collect their cut. It's a fucked up game, but that's how it is. Anyway, I went on a tangent that was completely unrelated, but back to the point. Let's move on to Nate Diaz. Nate Diaz, this is very important to state when you're breaking this fight down. He's a UFC fighter, but he's been fighting in the 155 pound and 170 pound weight classes in the UFC. So he is moving up to a weight class that he's never fought at in the UFC or in any other sport, obviously. Jake Paul is naturally the bigger man by far. And Jake Paul does have decent pop for a cruiserweight. Forget about a junior middleweight. That right hand, it's for real. And you know, Nate Diaz, I I haven't seen him box, but I can tell right off the bat that he's not necessarily going to be the slickest guy in the ring. His defense is most likely going to be not too good to non-existent. I see him getting tagged and hit with straight punches very easily because he just doesn't seem to, he doesn't strike to be the kind of person that's going to have good reflexes and head movement. It seems like he's going to be like an earmuffs kind of guy. He's just going to try to block and defend by keeping and holding his hands up. And that's what unathletic people do with no reflexes. Those kind of fighters, they try to defend by just being responsible with keeping their hands up because that's all they got, and that's all Nate's going to have. I'm assuming. And so that's very bad to have that kind of defense going in with a guy that could punch, especially with straight punches. Because with that kind of defense, you were most vulnerable to straight punches. At least with hooks and stuff, you could, block them and stuff. It's a little easier. But with the straight punches, even if you hold your hands up high, and you're responsible and you partially block the punches, you're going to be getting hit with something no matter what. Whether it's half contact, a little bit contact, full contact, you're going to be absorbing impact constantly. And we know that Jake Paul loves throwing straight punches, especially that straight right hand. He jabs a lot, so he could set up that straight right hand. So I expect Nate to be getting tagged with straight punches all night long. And let's just move on to the prediction. It's not much to break down. Nate's going to get knocked out. He's naturally a smaller man. Regardless of who he's sparred with in the past in boxing, Jake Paul is the more experienced fighter, and he's also the harder puncher, and he's the better boxer. I could say that with confidence. I don't even want to or see Nate fight prior to this. I have all the respect in the world for Nate. He's a good MMA fighter. He's got what it takes to be successful in that. But when we talk about boxing, in such a short amount of time, I don't think he's going to be able to develop the kind of defense and skills that he's going to need to get past a guy like Jake Paul. I expect him to be ready and put on the best effort that he possibly can, because that's what Nate always does. But I do expect him to get stopped eventually. I think he's going to get knocked out, most likely by that big right hand. I don't see him having good reflexes or good defense for him to get past this fight without getting stopped. Again, all the respect to him. That's just what I see. There you have it, folks. Thank you for tuning in as always. A lot more previews and breakdowns to come because we got all these great fights coming up. So thank you once again, and I'll see you guys soon. Peace.